Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to make fingerless gloves beginning to end. And this is how they turn out. This is the medium size, and what we're going to be doing is making the mate to this one today. But the written downloadable PDF that you can get through premiumknittingloops.com, which the link is in the description below, does have the measurements for the adult large and for the child size as well. I'm doing the medium, which is like a normal adult size. Move all these over. Now the tools you're going to need for this is you're going to need a 9-inch long loom by Cindy Woodcrafts. You can get this in one of two ways. If you have a long loom already, it should have came with one wedge, one tensioner, and your loom hook. You'll need all of those. You will also need a second wedge that you can purchase from them by itself. You can also purchase this set with all of this together and with your pegs already marked. The link is in the description below. And it comes, this one's just done with fingernail polish, but you'll have green pegs, purple pegs, blue pegs, green pegs, purple pegs, blue pegs. Like that. And that's marking the sizes. The green is small, medium, and large, and this is for the thumb, small, medium, and large. We are just paying attention to the purple pegs today, which if you are marking your loom now, use your black peg as your counter peg, and you're going to mark peg 10, here, peg 10, 13, 29, and 32. That's what we're going to be using for this pattern today. Other things that you will need to make this: you'll need a row counter. You can use any row counter you want. This is just a row counter I like. It has LED. I can wear it on my finger and just go. This is just my personal choice. You'll need a crochet hook and a pair of scissors. And of course your yarn. You can use any like a size 4 or 5 yarn is good for this pattern. I'm using, this is a bulky weight yarn, it's the size 5, and this is from Lion brand. They're unique. It's the kind of yarn is called unique. I don't know the exact color of this one. I'll have to find it out and put that in the description as well. But I like it because it stripes with the blue and the green and the brown. Now the one thing you gotta notice, this is a set. I made one right after the other. They may not stripe exact, but all those colors are going to be in it, and they'll still, you know, the mismatch thing is kind of popular now. Or you can make a few sets and then just pair up the ones that match the best. One skein of yarn will make you one set. So there we go. Okay, so let's get started. Alright, we are going to take our first peg, the slit side facing away from the black peg, and place in between pegs 10 and peg 32. Or purple if your loom is marked. The way we're making this is our first set, we are doing this right here, is just where all your fingers come through. Then this right here is going to make your thumb. Then you're going to make this area your wrist, and then however long you want the arm part, and then your cast off. Alright, so to do the cast on for the fingerless gloves, I use the chain cast on. I do not use a crochet hook, which I'm going to go over it kind of fast. I do have different videos to show you how to go over it a bit slower if you'd like. But you start with a loop, a pull string, see, and we start with this peg in the middle. Now if you are more comfortable, if it's more comfortable for you to knit this way, that's fine. It's not going to mess the pattern up. Just reverse the rest of the directions. Now to do this cast on, so simple. You just pull the loop behind the peg, pull the working yarn through and tighten it. Just don't tighten it too much because you don't want it to be too tight for your next row. So you do this all the way around. Okay, once we get back, we need to hook this. So you do that other purple peg, then you take the loop, put it on that middle peg, and this is what it's going to look like. You take that end yarn down through the middle, and you're going to push these down a bit. And then you just start doing an E-wrap. Your first row is an E-wrap. And the first 10 rows are going to be worked in this little circle area that we have just created. See, first row is E-wrap, and then you take the bottom. Now, as you're taking the bottom over the top, when you get back to this one, there'll be 3 loops on it. You just take the bottom 2 over the top 1, and that's your row 1. Now you see your yarn is coming from this peg, so we're going to be using this middle peg, which is, I call it peg 0 for the pattern, just to keep from any confusion of other pegs. Now our row 2 is going to be a purl stitch, which I do have individual videos for each of these stitches if you need help with those. Yeah, but this middle one is going to be the most awkward out of all of them. But once you do a few rows, you'll get used to it. All right, so I'll do a couple purl stitches here. You take your hook down, pull the yarn up through. You've created a new loop. You take that off and put it on. Show you again. You take the hook down through the yarn on the peg, take the working yarn up through, take the previous loop off the peg, and put that new one on and tighten it. Don't tighten it too much, but what we are doing right here is creating a garter stitch, which is at this end. It's going to keep it from curling. So row 1 is E-wrap, row 2 is a purl stitch, row 3 is an E-wrap, row 4 is a purl stitch, and row 5 is an E-wrap. So go ahead and do your first 5 rows. This is what it looks like after you have those first 5 rows done. This is what it's going to look like on your loom right now. At this point, we're still working in the same area. We're doing this part right here. So we're doing 5 rows of just the purl stitch and this following this exact same path. So you'll be on row 10 when you are done. Alright, once those 10 rows are completed, this is what this is looking like at this point. So you have your purl stitches, you're going to start seeing a flat part, and then all this is bubbled up. And what you've done is this and this. And because of the way this stitch is, it's going to want to flip inside out, like come up through the top, and that's fine. Just push it down. There's nothing wrong. Okay, so at this point, cut your working yarn, leaving a long enough tail to weave in when you're done. Your peg 0, we are going to take the loop off it, and I just move it over to this side. It doesn't matter what side you move it to. Go ahead and take that out. And this string, I go ahead and pull down in the middle so that it is out of the way. Take your wedge, and you want the slit in it facing the opposite way. You're going to move it up. Instead of having it between these 2 pegs, you're going to move it up to where it's between these 2 now. And you're going to take your second wedge, and where is, okay, you want the slit facing the opposite way. We're going to go up to your next purple gloves, your next purple ones, which is number 13 and 29. and go in between those. So in between the blue ones, which that would be 11 and 31, and then in between 13 and 29. Now we are going to do the thumb. To cast on for this, again, we're doing the chain cast on. You have your slip knot. And you're going to pull that through and pull that tight. Remembering not to make it too tight. And we are just going. Let me zoom this in some. Okay. So we got on that one, this one, this one. This one. And go to our second adjuster. Wrap it around it. Okay, and with your loop, put it back on that first adjuster. You're going to push all those down. And I don't restart my counter. I leave it, are you able to see that okay? I leave it where it's at. The next 5 rows are just going to be that garter stitch again. So your first row is going to be E-wrap, purl stitch, E-wrap, purl stitch, E-wrap. I'll go around one time to show you. So we are E-wrapping, and we are only doing this little square here of, was this 8 pegs. Right there is all you're doing this little garter stitch on. So that was row 1, which I didn't restart my counter, so it has 11 on it. When you're done, that's all you're doing right here. It's just this thumb spot. So again, we got your chain cast on. First row is an E-wrap. Second row is going to be a purl stitch. Third row is E-wrap. Fourth row is a purl stitch. And fifth row is an E-wrap. And it's all in this tiny little circle. All right, after your 5 rows are completed, bringing it up to 15 rows altogether, this is what this is going to look like. And now what we do is we're going to take the loop off this middle one, and I just do whatever side I put the loop on for the other one. Oops. I just do the opposite side, but it really doesn't matter which side you put the loop on. And then I just take that adjuster out. You got 3 strings hanging down from the middle. Over here's where your yarn's coming from, so this peg right here is going to have 2 on it, and this peg over here is going to have 2 on it, but you treat those just as one. And now you're going to do 10 rows of purl stitch. And what you're going to be doing is going completely around like that for 10 consecutive rows. Okay, so you've got your 10 rows right here done, which if you are keeping track on a counter, that puts you up to 25 rows altogether. You got 10, 5, and 10. Now we need to do the decrease. At this point, your glove is probably just now starting to come out from under the bottom of the loom. This is what it should look like. And when each row I was counting, this was the purple peg, your first purple peg was your starting peg because that's what side you came off of. Okay, so to do this decrease, what we do is we're going to start over with peg 13. Take the loop off of it and put it on peg 12. Then we're going to go over to peg 29 and put the loop on peg 30. And now you're going to purl 2 rows, and you follow the pattern the yarn is going. You don't do pegs that have nothing on them. When you get to these pegs, you treat them as just one. Okay, so after your 2 rows, if you're counting consecutively, that should put you on row 27. Now, as we are moving the loops down, you can kind of pull this out and move it down along with it. So at this point, we are going to take the loop off of peg 12, put it on peg 11, and off of peg 30 and put it on peg 31. And as I'm moving this down, I try to put it in the middle of the rows right there, just to keep the tension very even. And you gotta be careful, because if you don't move this out of the thumb area out of the way before you move it down, you might catch the yarn. So there we go. We just moved peg 12 to 11 and peg 30 to 31. So these 2 pegs are going to have 2 loops on it again. And just like before, we're going to do 2 rows of purl, just going in a complete circle using only the pegs that have yarn on them. Alright, so we've done our 2 rows. That puts us on row 29. Before we do our next part, instead of having the working yarn coming from the blue peg, from this is peg 30, oh, peg 31, we're actually going to move the working yarn. We're going to go ahead and do peg 32, so it's coming from there and going. At this point, we take the working yarn from peg 11 and put it on peg 10, and from peg 31 put it on peg 32. Go ahead and wiggle that down some more. Make sure you haven't caught any yarn with the thumb spot. Alright, now from here we're not going to decrease anymore after this, so we are going to do row 30 through 45 is all purl, and that is to do this part right here. So we've just done all of this, and now we're just going to do this part. And just like the rest, complete circles each time. And it's 15 rows if you're counting it by section. If you're going consecutively, that will put you row 30 through row 45 will be your last row. Okay, once the 15 rows are done, this is what your glove is going to look like. As you can see, it looks quite a bit different than this. It knits inside out, so don't worry about that, but this is about what you got. Now, if you are wanting the gloves to go up longer on your arms, all you do is just do more rows of purl right here. You don't stop at row 45. You keep going. And with the yarn I'm using, your gauge is about every 5 rows is a 1/2 inch. That'll give you an idea of how much longer you want to make the glove. Okay. So at this point, all we have left is the finishing cuff, which we do the exact same as the top. You're doing a garter stitch, so it's going to be 5 rows, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap. So it's going to be 46 is going to be an E-wrap, 47 is going to be a purl, 48 is going to be an E-wrap, 49 is going to be a purl, and row 50 is going to be an E-wrap. Alright, we are at row 50. So we've got all this done, and now we need to cast off. And the cast off I like to use is a super stretchy cast off, because you can see it blends in just completely with the garter stitch, and it does have a lot of stretch to it, but it also will go back to its original shape, and it matches the chain cast on. So you can't tell a difference between which is which. So that is why I use that cast off. Now what we do is we wrap the yarn around the loom, well, just around the part we're working on, 3 times, and then cut it. That's just to ensure that we have enough yarn to complete the cast off. Take that off. Okay, at this point, the yarn is coming from this middle peg. So we are going to go to the next peg. We're going to pull the yarn up through. Then we're going to go back 1 peg and pull the yarn down. Alright, now we're going to skip 1 peg, go to the next one, and again we're going to pull the yarn up through, go back 1 and pull the yarn down through, skip 1, pull the yarn up through, go back 1, pull the yarn down through. Now you can do this with like a tapestry needle. I find it very bothersome to sit there and try to thread the needles when I can do it like this and get it done faster. So we repeat this process until we are back to our first peg. So you are skipping a peg, pulling it up through, going back 1 peg, and pulling the yarn down through until every peg on the entire loom is done in this fashion. Alright, so you've done this all the way around, so every peg is connected. What I like to do is, this is my first peg, just go back to it, and I've already, as you can see, I've already done that one and went back to this one. So I'm just going to go back to this one again and just pull the yarn down through the peg. I just like the way it weaves in better when I do it that way. At this point, all there is to do is you just take your project off the loom. Once this is completely off the loom, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to be inside out. You're going to have strings hanging off of it. Now you got to finish all of this up. And to do so, you will need a crochet hook and a pair of scissors. So here's a crochet hook. And like I said, I went back once so that the yarn was already facing down. So you're just working with the yarn the way it's already facing. And all I do is just weave it through some stitches. The way the garter stitch is, I actually typically weave it down to the bottom row and then just through a couple. I just like the way it looks. You don't even notice, you don't see any type of extra bulge in the glove or anything. And then you want to stretch it real good and cut the string off. Now for the fingers, I'll do this side first because we only need 2 strings. We got 3 going off, and this one's a different color, so we'll work this opening with these 2. And just do this one the same way as I did the other end. Work it down to the bottom of the garter. And then across a few. And you want to stretch it. And snip. Alright, now to close up this thumb, we need to get this string down to the opening. Oh. Accidentally grabbed one strand there. Alright. There we go, that's better. So we got down to the opening, and all we're going to do is just be pulling the string through and just weaving it from one side to the next. Of course, I've already got this started fraying where I grabbed the wrong strand. Now, one thing, I like to weave it through, let me hold it up close so you can see. Alright, with some of these, if I just weave it through one of the bigger loops, then you could create a pool. If you look in between the stitches, you're going to see a smaller stitch. You can weave it through however you want, but I prefer to weave it through those smaller stitches because they're tighter and it all blends in a lot better. And that way you don't have any openings in between the thumb area. So you weave one side up. Now this one's typically a longer opening, so I'll weave it through before I get it to the opposite side. Again, this is, you do it however you like. I'm just showing you the way that I like to cast off for this project. Okay. Now once you think you got it weaved up, just kind of hold it up to make sure there's no noticeable like holes in it. At this point, what I do is I go ahead and knot that, pull it as tight as it needs to be, but you don't want to pull it too tight or else it'll make the thumb tight to get your finger into. And I do a box knot, and then I weave it on both sides. At least 3 stitches. Yeah. Because this knot's pretty tiny and you're not even going to notice that it's there at all. And with stuff like this that's going to be on your hands and feet, you try to use the least amount of knots possible, because they can get to where you can feel them and then just make it uncomfortable to wear. Alright, so here's the awesome part. Once this is all done, all the ends are sewn in, now you get to flip it right side out and see exactly how your finished project ended. And there we go. So there's the meat. And as you can see, this is a self-striping yarn. The mismatch thing is actually very popular right now. But if you're using a self-striping yarn and it turns out like this and that's not how you want it, you might need to buy a couple skeins of whatever yarn you're using and just keep and make, 2, maybe 3 sets so that you'll have gloves that match up better. Alright, everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Any questions at all, post them in the comment section below. And of course, do not hesitate to ask questions. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and thank you.